God damn it.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. And the truth. No, set you free.
Hey, I'll just jump in to this whole thing. Everybody, welcome to another episode of Face the Truth. I've known this fella throughout the years. His work is just amazing. He's a Chicago artist, also a fellow punk rocker, if you will.
Yeah.
And always just blown away by his art. Such a cool dude. And I'm looking forward to talking to him. So let's just jump into it. Everyone, please welcome Keelan McMorrow. Gosh, my microphone it's slipping. It's backsliding. Get back, devil, get back. So how you doing, man? How's it going?
Good. I'm good. Adjusting to this world, that keeps it seems like I'm the past, ever since through the pandemic, and it's been a constant, trying to adjust to everything. It's as an artist,
Yeah,
things are changing. Who knows how much is going to change back, but yeah, I'm just trying to go with things. But things are good.
Yeah,
I'm busy. Yeah.
Have you found, like throughout this whole pandemic thing, excuse me, it's so frustrating because, I thought it was like coming to an end,
Yeah.
and it's so hard, like, to know, like, I mean, so the first like half of this thing, I was, I talked to different artists almost every week, and I always like try to figure like, how are you doing during this? Because, some people can't even, they don't even feel like creating. They don't feel like doing any art.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I've been lucky to have work, and so I just keep working, but I haven't really had much time for myself for like my own art or anything like that.
Sure.
Besides doing stand-up stuff, but like actual drawing and painting, I haven't gotten to do too much of that. But I can't imagine just not doing it. But some people like have like closed off. And how has it been for you though? Have you felt like able to be creative and work in that?
Yeah. Not too. Going back to like 2020 when things really hit. I remember talking to a close friend of mine, catching up on the phone, and we both kind of agreed that in a sort of sick way, this is like our time, because I part of me enjoyed just not having outside things pulling me away, like, oh, I've got to go to this event or do it. It was kind of nice in some ways, that got old, but I think, overall, I think I did better, psychologically than a lot of people. I didn't start noticing how much certain negative things were affecting me till quite a while into things. Most of what I struggled with psychologically was just worrying about my parents, 70s, and they had taken my grandma in with them, and she's turning 100 in like a month.
Wow.
2 months. And they ended up all catching COVID, and my
wow,
centenarian grandma, she they didn't even know she had it. It wasn't until she was tested, they're like,
so she didn't have any real reactions. That's crazy.
No, I ended up catching it around Christmas, and I had it worse than her. I mean, I was knocked out for several days, and she was fine. She was.
It makes me wonder, man. Like, it's so crazy because, so before, I think I had it actually before we even knew in the United States what this was, because I went to New York, and in February of 2020, and I went to dinner with a bunch of artists and had a good time hanging out. Got back, and I was like the sickest I've ever been. And
Yeah.
COVID wasn't even in the news really that much yet. You know, it was just
Right.
little speckles here and there, people talking about
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah.
I got so sick, man, like just like crazy high fever for a couple days, the shakes. Every time I'd cough, my head felt like it was splitting. Just felt miserable. And then it took about 2 weeks to like get over it, to feel full, you know. And then later I found out that a couple artists that I was with, they got sick the same time and they tested positive for COVID. But I never went to the doctors or anything like that. And then just like so I've been vaccinated, and I got the ouchie Fauci, and and I went like maybe, gosh, I think it was like maybe a month ago, I got pretty sick, or not even a month, maybe a couple weeks ago. I got pretty sick with fever and the shakes and just felt terrible. But I just thought I had, you know, caught some. The other thing about all this is I part of me feels like, because we've been locked up for so long and we've been wearing the masks, maybe now we're more susceptible to a bunch of other things, because, you know, our immune system's not as strong because we're not like building up things. So, you know, like I've noticed like my kids keep getting little colds and stuff. And
well, that's one of the things that makes me think of my grandma.
Yeah.
She grew up, you know, on a little tiny farm during the Depression, you know, in a more or less like immigrant community out near around the Quad Cities. It was, I mean, everything. I think there's something to, and you know, scientists are figuring this stuff out more and more, but the way our immune systems develop when we're young, even in the womb, but, you know, we have symbiotic relationships with nature and with other life forms. And, you know, you need like good bacteria and things.
Exactly.
Systems like in the gut. So I kind of think, you know, she grew up, you know, like the past is a foreign country, and she grew up in another land with entirely, I mean, whatever she was around, you know, going out milking cows, you know, picking up chickens and stuff, that affected her differently. I think because she never really gets sick. And when
she could just have a good immune system. I mean, it's crazy because a friend of mine right now in California, and just talked to him yesterday. His whole family, they've been vaccinated and they all have COVID, even though they've been vaccinated. And he said that he feels like he's going to die. He's like so sick right now.
Yeah.
And he's been vaccinated. So it's like, geez, you know, some people, you know, so I don't know, like part of me is like, did I have it again and didn't realize it? You know, like, I mean, I guess I probably should have went to the doctors, but I just stayed home anyways. I just stayed home and dealt with it. But I don't know. It's weird too, because my wife, like when she got the vaccination, she was fine. You know, I got my first shot, knocked me out for like 5 hours. And then my second shot, my wife, again, she was not feeling good for maybe 5-6 hours. 4 days for me out.
Oh wow. So, yeah, you had it bad then. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Yeah, I felt weird, you know, for a couple hours that night. I was, you know, otherwise, the arm hurt for like a day, but
that's pretty funny. Yeah, I don't know. That's a funny thing too, is that I remember both times getting the shot, I didn't even feel the shot. I'm like, did you actually you did it? But then like a couple hours later, like, God damn, someone punched me in the arm. But anyways, it's been a weird time, man. It's like strange.
Super weird.
And like I find even like it's a strange time that we're living in right now, because we've got so much information just readily available, but we don't know if we can trust any of it.
Yes.
It's like you know, like you got the left saying Fox News is crazy, and you got the right saying CNN is crazy, and I'm like saying they're both crazy, and
to a large degree.
And I'm like who, like what is the right, like who's what? It's like, you know, it's hard to tell what's going on. And like even just yesterday, my father-in-law was telling me about this. You can get this if you get the COVID, you can take this, whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called right now.
The horse dewormer.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I just heard about this yesterday, and but I didn't know that you know. I told my friend in California, and he goes, "Oh, my wife is a doctor, and she says that's like you know, got some bad effects and all this kind of stuff.
It doesn't. Yeah.
It's just hilarious how like one doctor says this and another one says this. Like, this is why I stick to drawing pictures, man.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, I mean, if there's truth in art, you know, that's never been more appropriate. I mean, I've always been a fairly, you know, like you mentioned, we growing up in punk rock and everything, like I believe in justice and fairness, and I believe in, you know, I've always been a somewhat political person in that I believe there's certain things that are right and wrong, and I want to fight for those things and stand up for those things. And I want, you know, I don't want a government that doesn't do right by its people. But things are when things become polarized in a way that it seems like one side is terrified of something like the vaccines, whether they're 100% effective or not. It's fascinating, the science behind them, because it's all understanding how much science has gone towards, you know, years, you know, before we were born, up in, you know, through our own lives. It's fascinating, and it's had profound effects on, you know, our well-being. And it seems like a lot of people, I don't want to put their own beliefs or thoughts in their heads, but it seems like so much of what people are afraid of or what they believe is affected by politics. And it's like we're afraid of a vaccine. I don't trust that, but you know, you're going to take something that, and it's not just a horse dewormer. I mean, it's in stuff for dogs, for you know, similar things. But it's strange. And at the same time, you know, I see really simplistic explanations for things on people who I otherwise generally agree with politically. Everything is one of the things with information in the internet. People want, it's like they cling to little, like memes. I think about meme politics, you know, where people don't discuss things and talk. They share memes, and usually if you're putting anything, these are all complex problems, and if you're putting it in a meme, and that's like how you're being political, that's strange. And
but that seems to be the way. I mean, it's like everything is such a joke. It's like I don't know, it's weird. Like I found that you know, for the most part, like I used to be on Facebook a lot more, like years ago, and mostly it was for my work, and that's really all I do is share my art on it. But like
same.
Basically 90% of anything on Facebook is just completely toxic right now. It's just nothing but arguing and people fighting and all this kind of stuff. There's no, I don't find very much inspiration. I have a few artist friends that it's kind of cool to see what they're doing or whatever, but you know, but I mostly been sticking on to Instagram. But what's really funny is just like what you were saying with the politics and everything going on. It's like, do you know who Michael Rappaport is?
Actor, actor
and a comedian and whatever else. Well, he's a friend of mine on Facebook, on Instagram, and he's a really, really cool guy, really supportive of the arts and that kind of stuff. But I've noticed, like, every once in a while he posts like crazy things, like he's posting tons of videos of people fighting, and he like punching each other and all these weird things, and he'll post like political things, and he'll curse out political leaders. And but what's interesting about his, I'm gonna challenge, I want to see if you can let me know if this works. Anybody listening to this, no other Instagram account has been this way. Anytime I post something on under one of his things, and there's like thousands of comments, okay, if I post anything on there, I will next time I come back to my Instagram, I've got like hundreds of responses, and it goes on, and people just are in like a frenzy. It's just like it's craziness, and I don't know what it is about his Instagram, but people are going there to fight. You know what I mean? It's like insanity.
Does he post things that are controversial sometimes?
He does, but it's still, it's like, and sometimes it's meant to be funny, you know, too.
Sure.
And I'll go on there and I'll like full on like write a joke, like I'll say something really stupid, and then people like lose their minds, and like it's.
Wow.
But you guys got to check it out. It's really, it's like if you look up any like NASA or any kind of space Instagram account, every single post is going to be flat earthers on there. It's so fake, man. It's not real. You know, it's just like nonstop. It's the best, man. I love it. But like I was going to tell you, it's like, I mean, throughout this pandemic, I've gotten so many. I mean, it's calmed down a lot, but during the first like 5 months, I don't know if I'm sure you got these too. Like people like pass around, you got to watch this video, man. This is like the truth. This is the truth about the pandemic, and you know, but it's so funny, and you know, and my dad, he sent me a few videos to check out on things, and I swear every single one, if you take 2 minutes, you will find out who directed it, who wrote it, and it's usually someone that believes in lizard people. Okay. Like,
what was that British guy, Ike or whatever, David Icke, was that his name? He has all those books about the lizard people. I went through a phase when not that I ever believed it, but when, I don't know, early 20s, where I was kind of fascinated, where, you know, I looked at some of his books where I'm like, this guy believes in lizard people. And I don't know, it's amazing. It's so amazing. Yeah.
No, it blows my mind. There's so much crap out there. There's people, and the stuff that people believe, it just cracks me up, man. And hey, we're artists. Artists are weird already.
Oh yeah,
you know? And so I mean, I'm a strong believer that if you already believe in something pretty crazy, like from my point of view, like I'm not a very big fan of religion, or God or gods, or I don't believe in superheroes either. You know, I don't believe in Tinkerbell or any of that stuff. But if you believe in something like that, and I believe that you're opening your mind to other conspiracy theories. You know? Totally. And like you've got like a bunch of people that strongly believe. I mean, like if you like take Christianity, for example, there's like 33,000 different sects of Christianity. They can't even agree with each other on what God is, or who, or why, or when, or what, or what's the point, or should we talk to Virgin Mary or not? You know, there's just no, they can't even figure it out amongst themselves. Right. And you're supposed to just, you know, it's a conspiracy theory within conspiracy theory within conspiracy theory. Right. And then, you know, they're gonna. I just find that you see a lot of people buying into these other things because it's like, yeah, of course Santa's real, you know, of course. Well, flying reindeer, of course. Right. It's a really good point though, because I mean, we can scoff at lizard people, but I mean, okay, I was raised, you know, Catholic, super Catholic, and I mean, it's in the past. I mean, my dad has one of his favorite stories about his grandpa is, you know, and he was from Ireland, was on St. Patrick's Day one year here in Chicago. One of my dad's friends came over wearing like an orange shirt. And this kid, I don't know, he wasn't Irish. He didn't know what that signified or whatever, but you know, orange is for, you know, the loyalists, the Protestants, and you know, my grandpa, or you know, my dad's grandpa like flipped out on him. He's like, I never saw him mad like that. And wow. Of course, there's also underlying that, you know, it's not just religion, it's like ethnic tensions and colonization and stuff. Yeah, of course. But when I think about, I remember years ago becoming friends with some people who were more like evangelical, and they were like, oh, well, what you were raised with, you know, like you guys worship saints and Mary, and it's paganism, you know, and at the time I was like, what, you know, but then it's within the Catholic Church, you know, it's doctrine that transubstantiation, like when you get communion, that is literally the body and blood of Christ. It's not just symbolic. It's a literal. So
within the Catholic Church, it's part of doctrine that, we're cannibalizing, or I don't know, is it cannibal?
It's spiritual cannibalism,
You know,
basically.
but that's the thing, we're eating which I kind of, part of me, I'm fascinated by these things, and I think it's kind of cool in the kind of, but just like thinking about it and reading about it. But when at the same time, getting down to the nitty gritty, and that this is stuff that millions, billions of people have believed for years. And lizard people then in a way aren't that weird. And I don't know. I mean,
it is funny because so I was raised like super like more fundamentalist Christian, like evangelical.
We talked about that one time.
And the way I was raised with Catholics are not Christians.
Exactly.
And that's because they make up all this stuff. It's not because we were like the Bible literally. The funny thing is the Catholic Church basically started everything. For the most part. I mean, they like with the first popes and everything.
Right, but they also put everything on top of and purposefully too. This is something I've read a lot about. The early church really did, as they were trying to spread throughout like Europe and everything from like the Roman Empire, they superimposed church doctrine and belief systems on like older pagan, and like in Ireland. There's some of the biggest saints, like one is Saint Bridget or Brigid. She, like, it's disputed whether she was even a real human being, because it's known she was a pagan goddess, but she's also a Christian saint. And there's holy wells all over the island and things that are, devoted to different saints, but they're, they predate Christianity. And I love that stuff, and when it's that form, because it's just really old things people have done. It doesn't really mean much to me as far as like what I remember one of the last times I was there, somebody I know was like, oh, I think there's a power about them, and it's in a weird way, because people have centered themselves on those things for so long. It's ancient. I mean, that's kind of cool. But as far as literally believing things, I think it's just, I can't, I struggled with that when I was really young. Now I like old things. I have like old rosaries and things that were, dead relatives. And I like all that stuff. But doctrine, I mean,
what's the history of it too? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But all those things are, so much of it is super weird and super fascinating. And like you said, there are a lot of Christians who believe, Catholicism. Yeah, it's not even Christianity, and there's
in the same way, like Christians, a lot of Christians, I've heard them say this many times personally, will make fun of Mormonism. And how silly and ridiculous it is.
Oh, they made it all up.
And it's like basically the same exact thing. But the funny thing about it is it's like
made it up.
It's like, the Christians will say that about Mormonism when the Jews believe the exact same thing about Christians. It's like it just cracks me up. I love all this stuff too. I really I love reading and studying about religious stuff, because I find it very fascinating. Like, I mean, you're talking about like the ritual of communion and everything. It's become so normal to people, and they go, oh yeah, we do communion and this and that, but you're not really thinking about what this is. And it's actually a very primal, primitive ritual. It's
exactly,
it's not, it's so kind of like creepy. It's like, but
that's just it. There are deep, when you look into people who have been studied, who have practiced forms of cannibalism, it's usually something spiritual. Like in Papua New Guinea, there were some tribes, and in the 20th century, there was still cannibalism. And one of the fascinating things was a sickness that developed out of people who ate human flesh, and it's similar to like mad cow disease, and and that's it's prions, where it's proteins that mimic viruses in a way, and it messes with our brains. And so the people getting sick were only women and children, because it was basically within the tribes, it was the women and children who ate meat. But they were eating their own relatives when they died, and it was a form of like honoring them. And
Ugh.
there's something incredibly, it's disturbing and strange and creepy, but it's well, part of my point is, whenever you compare these different things, it is like this really primal, like eating is this intimate act of like,
Yeah.
you're consuming, but you're sharing, you're becoming a part of, so when you're actually eating a god, and my body becomes your body, my blood is,
Yeah, it's so, but it's funny, if you actually break it down and think about it, it sounds like something that crazy people thought about 2,000 years ago.
Oh yeah, probably.
That's because what it is.
Yeah.
It's just like, I just find it so funny. It just cracks me up.
Desert. Yeah. I mean, in the Middle East, where all pretty much all the Western faiths, and the big what do they call it, the Abrahamic religions. I mean, it's all from this part of the world where there's drastic cycles of and floodplains, and making it, things fertile, and just clashing of peoples and tribes. And I mean, it's funny that there are people it's disputed whether we put a man on the moon. No, I mean, I think 100% we did. But either way, we live in this fascinating time where we have incredibly high-powered computers in our pockets that have amazing phones, cameras. They also have phones. They do all these things. Like, technology is insane, and there are still people putting all their stock, everything, into just these really, I don't know. I don't blame people thousands of years ago for trying to make sense of the world. But today it gets more frustrating.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I think, like, I don't know if it's just me, but I can assume like as artists in general, right? Like, I feel like we're always thinking about things and maybe overanalyzing things. And
definitely.
And it's funny, like, oh man, hold on a second. That's weird. It's never happened to me before. So they only had a little bit of time.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's very strange. Normally, yeah, it should be fine. Normally,
Okay.
I've never had that. Normally I have, because it's just one-on-one. Oh, it's, what it is? It's because you added the third window. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it should be fine now.
Cool.
What was I saying? I was just saying, like,
Artists with
we seem to be more like, okay, what got me not believing in that stuff anymore was actually studying it and looking into it, because
Right.
I'm so curious. I'm curious about everything. And it's the same thing when I do stand-up comedy, like the writing. I'm always like overthinking things and thinking about every little thing. And there's ideas and there's material everywhere for us to soak in. And to think
Right.
about everything.
Right.
So I can't just look like, my parents have a hard time with me not believing in God. And I've tried to explain to them, I've tried to explain to them, like, listen, I did not choose, whether you want to believe this or not. I did not choose to not believe in God. I don't believe in it. Like I can't, it's impossible for me to. I've, and part of the reason is me looking into it and studying, like me reading the Bible led to me becoming an atheist because I read the Bible.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
And I actually really read it and really like went, to me, all you have to do is read the first like 2 chapters of Genesis and there's no God. Okay. That's what happens for me personally. But it's,
right.
For me, it's like, I can't, I have to explore things. I can't just accept something without looking into it. I need, it's I guess a verification of, you know, what is it? I mean, like I said earlier, it's so hard to know what to believe. We have so much at our fingertips, so many ways that we can research and study. And so in some ways it's just so amazing. We can all be educated. We can all like learn about, you know, three-wheel motorcycles if we want to, or any weird random thing that we can think of. We can like look it up and figure it all out. But at the same time, we can't agree on what happened on January 6th, you know, even though we have video evidence and everything else. No, that didn't happen. This happened. And he didn't say that. He said this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you know, we can go on and back and forth and back and forth. And then there's always going to be QAnon and whatever else saying this and that. And it's weird. It's hard, I think, for us to process. Like it's like, what's happening?
Right. In a weird way, using art as a metaphor, it's like, you think about what you were saying, you know, as an artist and in thought processes and how they relate to this kind of stuff. Like, it really rings true, because I think there's something to that. Like, artists are vastly different people, but one thing that ties most real artists together, creative types, is there is this innate curiosity. Like, we're driven to discover, tinker, that, you know, bend the rules, find things out. And when you think about most people who don't do art, and especially to a certain level, they don't really understand everything that goes into like a painting. You know, they might be fascinated if it's well, you know, it's well done. They're like, wow, I could never do that. But they often can't correlate price points because it's hard to conceptualize. Like, it's like, well, oh, you're a plumber. How much do you make in a month? Well, this painting took a month. You know, but you know, offhand, people have issues with that. But when you think of everything that goes into a painting, and, you know, all the little influences, you know, on conceptual levels that an artist might not even think about, you know, all those little things. And then at the end of the day, you have all the interpretations of that work, you know. People can, it's like, what do they see in things? And yeah, it's interesting, because people can come to very different conclusions about what they, you know, if they go to a museum, if they go to the Art Institute and looking at different work. Some people might just see what they see. It's super literal. Other people might see other things. Other people, you know, they're more educated and they know something about that artist. But then at the same time, they're just coming from other historians, you know, their ideas on that art and artists. So in a way, they're almost like followers in what they believe. And so art's kind of like that. Art is kind of this metaphor. And at the end of the day, what went into creating this one picture, like you mentioned, January 6th, we're all looking at the same videos, but where we're coming from, we're at these, you know, parallactic viewpoints, and
what
one can, you know, really.
What glasses are you wearing? Like, you're wearing a certain glasses with a certain shade, and you're only seeing that, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I like to tell people, you got to take your God glasses off for a little bit and look at it a little differently. You know, it's funny. That reminded me, we were talking about, is like, I was talking with a Christian friend of mine who he's a good friend of him, and I love him. But he's always, you know, wants to talk about things. I don't really want to talk about things because it's just like, it always ends very awkward and uncomfortable. But I was, you know, we were in one of these talks, right? We're having like one of these kind of debates, and I was like, no. I was getting into it about, you know, where Christianity came from and why and how we know this and how it, you know, it's a branch off of one of many branches that off of Judaism and all on and on and on. And I was like, and I just asked him a simple question. I was just like, okay, how do you explain the fact that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of gods and religions before yours? You know, because you claim that.
What happened to those people?
Yeah. And he's like, no. See, this is my point of bringing this up, is it's like, once you believe, you drank the Kool-Aid and you believe everything in the Bible, it's like you don't
make everything fit.
You don't think anymore.
Yeah.
His answer was, no, my God was the first, because it says in Genesis,
Right.
in the beginning.
Right.
It's like, dude, some motherfucker wrote that.
Right.
Like some ancient goat herder from 2,000 years ago, the Goat Herder's Galaxy, her Guide to the Galaxy, like wrote this stuff. And but my point is before that there was thousands before. So,
right.
but you can't just say, oh, no, it says in the beginning. It's like, but that's how that's and that's I just find the same parallel with like politics and things going on right now with everything that's going on. It's like the same thing. Like you can't watch anything because, or you don't know exactly what's what with what, the vaccines, these new horse tranquilizers and shit or whatever.
Right.
It's like, no, someone's taking this, and no, Joe Rogan said this, and he's taking that, and he's
I just heard about that.
Yeah.
That guy.
Let's listen to a podcaster over a doctor. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like he's free to do whatever he wants, but man, he's Joe Rogan. He's a dude. I mean,
exactly.
I think
he's just a guy.
I'd rather go with scientific consensus, and some things could turn out to not be ideal. It's just, to me, that's the best option I've got, because I don't know, because there are so many things I don't know. So I'm gonna, for certain things, trust the experts. It doesn't mean be a sheep. That's the funny. I've seen that. There bits on Facebook, people I know from school and things who are on that side of things. I see that a lot. Oh, these sheep. And I'm like, really, for trusting scientists, like the vast, 99.9% consensus. Maybe some things might not work out, but or maybe some of us will start getting sick again, and catching this thing, even though we were vaccinated. But there's lots of things we don't know. We need to do the best we can. I don't know. The paints I use might, give me, I don't know. Lots of things could happen. Some have warning labels. I'm gonna just, I'll wear gloves, or I'll, there are precautions I'll take. Otherwise, rust is caused by oxidation. The air you breathe is over time. Like by existing, it's a risk, and you're gonna die. We're all gonna die. Just do your best. And
I love I can't. It's something Louis C.K. said, but it's on one of his specials. But he said something like, most people are dead. Like most people that have ever existed are dead.
Yeah.
In fact, we're all gonna die. And then he said something like, and we're only, we're gonna be dead way longer than we've been alive. He said something. But the way he said it was so funny. He's like, so who gives a fuck? Just have fun, But it's a screw. I can't remember exactly what he said, but anyways, man, this has been. We went all over the place already. I was not expecting to talk about this stuff, but you know what? Who cares? It's awesome. It's good to talk about it. But I want to talk, before we get too far here, I want to talk about your art a little bit. And one thing I really enjoy about what I'm like, your work looks complicated, if that's the right way to put it. Like it's I look at it and I'm like, man, that is like some intense rendering. But there's just so much layering and texturing in there. And it's beautiful work. There's like a life to it. And I'm just wondering, like, first of all, what is your main medium that you're using? And also, like, when you're working on these, do you do like a ton of like pre-sketch work for each piece, or is it more of like an organic, like you just kind of just start working on it and just see what happens and what feels right?
Okay. Well, first of all, as far as medium, for the most part, I'm using acrylics these days for paint, because I'm working in lots of really thin layers, like I mean glazing essentially, but acrylics dry so much faster. And I've always been a little sensitive to oils. I love working with oils for certain things, but I tend to avoid them when I can. But in the last several years, my work shifted in a big way to where it's been a little over 5 years ago. We lost my older brother, and that, you know, it messed me up, as it would. He died on my birthday, and at the time I had been frustrated with it's not like I didn't like where my work was at before. I was just it was brighter, it was more aesthetic in there was something in me that felt like it wasn't honest enough in what was deep at the root of things. And so I was going through a couple years of just trying out different things. And then when my brother died, there was something that I remember, with everything else going on, forcing myself to keep working. Like I always realized, I mean, I get depressed when I'm not doing, creating stuff. So I knew that, I had to force myself to keep working it. And the most therapeutic thing was just drawing, like drafting, it's like that was always square one for me as a kid. Just my mom always said I was like, wanted to scribble things, but I was one of those, probably, you probably were too. I mean, it's like there's just something making that mark. So, I was doing really drawing based work, heavy draftsmanship, and I've always been into figurative. So there was that. And what I started experimenting with is drawing focused, but it's almost like every painting starts as a drawing. There's varying degrees of what or those initial marks are usually with graphite or charcoal. And I've just kind of reversed it, where the drawing is more predominant, and then the painting is it's those thin layers. I mean it gets thick in areas where it's I like to get these almost like certain areas are stark, this contrast, and other areas are more like spectral light, getting hazy, and that's where I need the paint more. So it's kind of like that balance. But as far as like composition and what I do beforehand, I work out the composition of the figures with sketches, and I don't like to I don't do as fully rendered stuff as some people I know do. It's really just figuring out the comp, and everything else, the abstraction going on in the overall paintings, like what I think you're referring to, with the complicated aspects, that a lot of that is intuitive, and it's coming when I'm doing the painting. I mean, some things I figured out beforehand, but a lot of that, because I find a lot of what I've composed beforehand tends to change, or I find out certain things I don't like where it's going. So a lot of that I just go with it. And it's that's really one of my favorite parts of the process too.
Yeah.
Because it takes on a life of its own. And
That's awesome. What medium are you using for those? I mean, like not the acrylic, but I mean more like the like, is it paper? Is it masonite? Or like board?
Yeah, I've been using some like illustration boards for a bit, because I mean, part of it was because when I was doing, started doing the heavier drawing stuff, and then part of me loved that I didn't have these, because I always liked panels, hardboard panels, and I kind of liked that I could do a really elaborate painting, and then at least before it was framed, just stick it in the flat file. It was kind of nice, so I like that. But recently I've been like I've experimented with like the panels I used to always like using, but attaching paper, to that. And I'm using like heavy, like cotton, pressed like arches or so it
Yeah.
can take some abuse, but it takes like pencil really well. Always smooth. If I'm using something like a watercolor paper, I want like hot press.
Yeah.
I don't like, I like to control the texture myself. I've never liked canvas at all. Lately though, like I'm doing a big group show later this year. A lot of local artists are in, and the guy who organized it, he has he's an artist, but he has a side thing going where he does like framing and art builds and stuff. Actually, that's the company. But he makes these aluminum panels. So I'm excited to, we each got a small one. So I'm excited to mess with that. And if I like it, one thing that's nice, the aluminum is light, comparatively to like, boards. But you can attach paper to it or whatever, cradle it in wood. So I'm excited to mess with that because I've noticed over the years some people using like aluminum or even other types of alloy panels, and I've been curious. I hadn't really explored. I like the idea of because that's one thing that's always frustrated me with like boards, illustration boards, is the archival issues. I mean, they've come a long way, but I know I've read about like illustrators from back in the day, like the 50s and 60s, and their illustration boards are they're falling apart or whatever. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, those are the main things I'm always concerned about is that how the surface feels, how it takes graphite, and then of course paint. But yeah.
And so I just had a question about your technique too. You were saying that, so is your drawing or your pieces, are they mostly just rendered first with pencil, like super, super, super tight, and then you're just layering in like thin layers of acrylic that ways? Okay.
Yeah, for the most part.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, because it's got like a, it's got that. I mean, the interesting thing is I look at your work, I'm like, I like a lot of work I look at, I'm like, okay, I can see, I know how they did that. But when I see your stuff, a lot of times like, how do they, I'm not sure exactly. I mean, now you say that I can see, okay, yeah, that makes sense to render it in pencil first. But that's interesting, man. It's a beautiful technique. I mean, it looks just awesome. And what I like about it too is I like when sometimes you'll show like close-ups and you can see a lot of like the drawing lines and a little bit of grit in there. I love that kind of stuff. It's awesome.
Well, that's one of the things I like. Yeah, like I was saying before, when I was kind of going through this period where I was just drawing because it felt good, like just because otherwise my older stuff, I mean, drawing's a part of painting, and
oh, weird.
But
your voice sounds weird again all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, there you go. Now it's better.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that's weird.
All right. Sorry, what were you saying?
Okay. What was I saying? You're gonna have to cut all this part out.
Okay.
Oh, okay. With the like the technique of graphite rendering, and it's something I just kind of when I was kind of figuring out this process, it was a little eureka moment where I was just realizing that drawing's always a part of painting. Every painting starts with drawing, and not just the composition sketches, but you have a canvas, you're to varying degrees. I mean, some artists I know who will specialize in portrait painting. I think those of us who work in like realism to some degree, do a lot more of this, but there's, it starts with drawing, but essentially in most cases, I'd say almost one of the goals of the painter, along with making a good painting, is they want those, whether it's graphite, charcoal, whatever, they want those marks covered up, and there was just, I don't know, I was getting so heavy into the drawing, and then, but I wanted to expand, with
well, yeah, I
painting.
mean, it's a little bit ridiculous to like render something out like that and then just paint over it. I mean,
well, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
and I
it's
realized I could kind of just have whatever I wanted. And I guess the eureka moment is just, sometimes there's things we do and it's we only do them because we've always done them that way. And other, it's like, well, this is like, I've always had mixed, I feel like I'm in the middle of, like, there are artists I know who, they come from ateliers, they, everything is like, this is what, and they'll refer to the old masters. And I think that's awesome, but at the same time, I think, we always have to allow ourselves to break certain molds. And, on the other side of things are, there's people who are like, well, painting's dead and this pile of rocks. Yeah. It's like, well, whatever. I'm definitely always from, I always feel like I'm, rooted in tradition with, techniques, but I'm always really excited to play around with things and try to figure out, at the end of the day, I just, I've got my deeper reasons for concepts within what I do. But as far as, first and foremost, I want to make something that looks really cool, and
well, yeah.
So, I mean, by any means necessary.
I mean,
really,
it like you said, there's nothing wrong with referring to the masters and
Right.
hey, this and that, but you know what? I mean, they weren't masters at the time that they were doing it.
Right. Right.
And they were like depending on what they learned from other people.
Exactly.
And it's like I look at it more like we take what we want, what we've learned from other artists, but we have to make it our own. We have to have our own voice, our own aesthetic. We use those things and then take it to the next step, a different place. I mean, that's the one thing that's great about art. Whether it's acting, comedy, painting, sculpture, whatever it is, special effects. There's no rules, really. You know what I mean? There shouldn't be. Like if you want to, like, gosh, what was I going to say? There's someone that I saw some piece of art recently where, it was basically, like noodle art, like like kids do in kindergarten.
Like macrame?
Yeah, like putting but I saw like this incredible piece of art that someone did with noodles. Like they put all these different shades together, and it was like, that's some advanced kindergarten shit right there. But it was like, is that art? Of course it's art, and it's really cool. I love seeing that kind of stuff. I love seeing when people do just like weird shit,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't think it's still there right now, but like I love going to the Milwaukee Art Museum. I don't know if you, it's they got a lot of great pieces there. But they had this one exhibit that just blew my mind, and I actually think it's gone now, but you basically walk into this big room and you look down at the other end, and it just looks like real clouds, like real clouds. And like, what? It's a whole wall, just huge wall. And you're just walking towards it, like, what is that? It's so crazy. It just looks like transparent, like, and then as you get up close to it, it still looks like you could reach through and just, it's clouds. And then you get right up to it and you realize it's all straws. It's just straws. And they're coming out at different distances. And it's just like, who in the world figured that out?
Right. Like, it probably just started as one little idea or experiment and kept expanding. And I mean, that's incredible. That is so often how art, I mean, that's one thing I think, it's frustrating, referring back to like how, non-artists value art, because they, touched on that before. I was kind of alluding to how much time it takes to make a painting, but there's also the lifetime before that of developing the skills that you could do that one painting that took a month or two or whatever in the first place. There's also the in that lifetime of developing those skills, there's all the experiments, all the trial and error, the mistakes, the worn out brushes, and it's, I mean, it is kind of fascinating to think, because nothing just comes out of thin air, really. I mean, rarely. I remember, well, it's kind of like I think Edison had that, there's that quote about invention being like 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, and that applies to art. It's and science. I mean, we were talking about science before. Everything, it's there's hypotheses and then trial and error, and the data comes in and reinforces certain, and then it keeps moving forward, and generations expand on those things, and art's been like that, and referring to the old masters, I mean, you can look over a few centuries of a specific segment of Western art, if we're focusing on that, and things change. It's not like they were doing the same thing the same way. Different mediums are applied, and certain things weren't successful. Some paintings that are 500 years old look perfectly preserved, and some are just all cracked, and there's things that didn't work. And it's people, we should always respect tradition, but we should be afraid to adhere to, and unless that's our point. If you want to be the guy at like the Renaissance fair who dresses up as Da Vinci and does painting just like, I mean, that's cool if somebody wants. Well,
it's like we've both been in bands, and it's like it's like you can learn how to play music, learn how to play guitar by listening to Nirvana or whatever, and trying to figure out how to play their songs. But at a certain point, you're going to use what you learned from learning how to play those songs to write your own songs and come up with your own sound. And I think with art, it's the same exact thing. You gotta find your voice. You gotta discover your voice. I think aesthetics is because it's one thing to learn a skill, to learn how to draw and how to paint and understand values, understand composition, understand soft and hard edges and all that sort of a thing. But it's like I tell people that are in art school, art directors out there, if you're looking for work, to be an illustrator or something like that, art directors are not going to be interested in seeing, a still life with some shoes and a flower, or a life drawing nude painting or whatever it is. That's not going to get you work, because yes, you did an amazing job. The skill is there, but you haven't shown what you can do with your skill. You're just, and there's a point where you develop these skills, and you can draw and you can paint, you can do all these things. Well, what can you do with those? That's the next step. That's where aesthetics come. I think. Well,
key next step, because one thing I get frustrated with sometimes when I see in like younger artists, art's a long game. Like to me, in a big way, like learning fundamentals, learning skills, developing, you don't have, like what you were talking about, that doesn't have to come right away. Like you can do the still lifes, you can do that. And then like there's sometimes a degree of narcissism that I feel like is really common in this day and age, where I mean, there's kids on Instagram just really hustling on Instagram who can barely draw, and it's like they're trying to somehow like there's a lot of people who think we're, we all really think we're special, and and that's referring to like this modern day narcissism where it's like, well, I've got, I remember a guy I knew years ago telling me like, oh, I wish I could just put my ideas in your head so then you could render with your hands, because I can't do that. But he just thought his vision was, and it was like, if your vision is that profound, you should probably do the work that I'm doing. And this was back when I was like, 21, 22, where I was, I'm still developing. I'm always developing, but it was like, I remember struggling with that, well, what should my art be, and well, just sometimes when you're young, just learn those, because it'll happen. It'll become like your own language just by doing and doing. You're going to spend a lot of time by yourself. You're going to spend a lot of time talking to yourself, and so to speak. And it will, that you'll find that voice. That's one thing I feel like a lot of artists when they're younger miss, because I know I sweated that, and it totally works itself out. But that's, it's, how many artists do you know are doing really profound things who, can't do anything to make that happen, where it's purely, there's the whole world of conceptual art, and when something's truly great, I'll always acknowledge it. But a lot of conceptual art seems, when it's bad, it's just it's a bad gimmick. It's like a one-liner. And that's always like, that's way more disappointing than a painting that might be kind of empty or vapid, but at least is beautiful. So there's that too. But
it's funny. I used to just, crap on conceptual art all the time.
Sure.
I just, I have a lot of pride in drawing well, painting well,
right.
And it's a lot of work. I've worked very hard at it. So when I see some sand thrown on the ground and then some write-up that goes on and on about what this means, I'm just like, shut up.
Right.
Shut up. But throughout the years, my thought on this, my thinking on this has changed to where I'm more open now to the ideas and just, but it has to be something that's, like this is like years ago. I was in a Minnesota art museum in Minneapolis, and there was a friggin' lawnmower attached to the wall, and it's like, first of all, some artist probably in Switzerland designed that lawnmower. Okay.
Yeah.
That's who the artist is. Every single thing you see, an artist did make it, but you sticking it on a wall says something. And now we're supposed to be like, oh, whoa, man. Like, this is amazing. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. But there, every once in a while though, there'll be some kind of concept that's amazing. Like, did you see the documentary? I can't remember what the artist's name is, but he's the one that's famous for putting a crucifix in a jar and then filling it with piss.
Oh, yeah, that was on the cover of Time magazine like years ago.
Yeah. Now, obviously that's got a lot of controversy, and I don't like it. I don't just like it because it's it's pissing on religion, basically.
Piss Christ,
yeah, that's what it. Piss Christ, yeah. A lot of people hate it. It makes a lot of people angry. And there's a lot of controversy. And that's kind of what I like about it, is that it makes people think, like, what is the artist? What's the intention here? What's the point?
Right.
And it makes people debate and talk. And that makes it a powerful piece, whether you like it or not.
And it's place
that's
in
fascinating
time too.
Yeah, exactly.
Place in time too. Like if there's kids going to like the Art Institute right now and they're like, well, I put this crucifix in this poop, or I did, it's
already been done though. So
exactly. And you might get some people upset, but they're gonna, there are people who will always get mad when you burn a flag. And burning a flag, whatever, protesters do it, but there's a point where we have to agree that burning flags, it doesn't belong in an art museum anymore. It's been done. There's something, I feel ready-mades annoy me in that way, where it's like Duchamp did the ready-made. And then it's like, really,
you didn't design that toilet.
But it's like when people are still referencing ready-mades like 100 years later, it's kind of like, the concept is how effective is that?
Mhm.
The other thing you mentioned, when the write-up is necessary, that often frustrates me because you could have just done that essay, to make your point. And a lot of the times there are things that hinge on something that would have affected us either way. And I struggle with that to a degree where, like, what's his name? The Chinese artist, Ai Weiwei, I think that's his name.
I'm not sure.
I watched one documentary about him a few years ago, and he had one piece where it was a critique of the low standard of building codes in China, and there was like one building that had collapsed and killed all these children, and it's like, that's horrible. You tell me about that, I'm affected immediately. And he did this piece where it was outside on a building. He put all these little children's backpacks, I believe they were.
Ooh,
like
that gave me chills.
Yeah,
just when
one
you,
for every children or every child, and that's powerful. I also wonder, is the art great though, or is it like tapping into something that we're affected by these children? There's the piece that's always at the Art Institute in the modern wing where it's that pile of candy. Do you know which one?
Yeah.
And do you know the story of that one?
No.
Okay, because part of the piece, for people who don't know, it's a pile of wrapped hard candy, and people I know who have worked at the museum, I've been told it's part of the piece. Like they refill the candy because you're encouraged to take a piece of candy. And I feel really awful right now. I can't remember the artist's name. But he was a gay artist in New York, and the piece is essentially about from the AIDS epidemic and losing his lover to AIDS, and it's all about it's like taking the sweetness of his love who's gone, and it's this really heartbreaking piece. And when you know that, suddenly what before I remember once or twice I'd see it, I was like, oh yeah, the candy, it was like, yeah, it's stupid, but I'll say I like candy though. And then when I heard that, I was affected by it, and I'm like, well, oh shit. But I still struggle with whether I think the art is great, because he could have done a number of things and that I didn't understand. Then when you tell me that story, I would have been like, oh, that's that's heartbreaking. So I struggle with that.
No, and I think we should. I mean, that's the whole thing again. Like it's the same reason. Back to like, we were talking about with religion and stuff. Like you can't just accept. You shouldn't just accept everything without like looking deep into it. And another thing I was going to say about the piss Christ thing is, one reason I like that piece, and it has nothing to do with the fact there's a crucifix and piss. The cool thing about that image is it's a photographer, and the photo he took, when you look close up to it, it's actually beautiful.
Yeah,
like the colors, the luminosity, like
it's like amber. It's like
it almost feels like a painting. It's like and it's just really interesting because it's like it is a controversial piece, but it's also if you actually really look at it, it's actually really beautiful. But it's ironic because it's a crucifix in piss. You know what I mean? So it's like that's what's interesting to me about that piece. Where I still remember that on the cover of Time, because that was years ago. I was probably like 11 or 12. I don't know. I was gonna say I think it was in the 80s.
Okay, was it that long ago? Because my dad always got Time, and I remember that cover. But that makes me think too about how many, going back to like the old masters, and how many old paintings were, religious in theme. And then if you actually know about what's in some of the paints and certain things, I mean, there's all kinds of gross things. So that's another thing, that's kind of weird. If you think about that with the piss Christ, is when you do consider that it is, that image is beautiful. I don't know. That's kind of interesting because I never really thought about that much before. But yeah, there's weird things, in Gaul all kinds of gross crap, and old, it's not just ground pigments, rare earth pigments and things. Yeah.
Real quick, I want to show you some fan art
Mhm.
real quick before we end this bad boy.
No.
But this just reminded me of, like, this is a true story. When I was in gosh, I think I was I might have been like a sophomore or something like that. I was
Mhm.
in my art class, and this kid sitting next to me was like cutting his wrist just a little bit.
Yeah.
And this kid was like, I'll describe this kid: really short hair, greasy all the time, always had dandruff, black shirts, always had dandruff on his shoulders.
Yeah.
I had a little pentagram hanging there.
Hell yeah.
Kind of a creepy little dude. And he's just sitting there, just like cutting a little bit, and then just dripping it into this little teeny saucer thing. And then he would do this drawing, like an ink drawing with his blood.
Yeah.
And he did this every single day. And
Was it good?
no, I mean, it was just like,
No. Okay.
he wasn't like amazing, but he was drawing like, demons and shit with his own blood. And I remember just thinking, you're going to hell, bro. like, because I was like super Christian at the time, and I was just like,
Yeah.
But I look back now, and I'm just thinking it was so funny because it would almost like dry, almost like a brown color, almost. And it was just interesting. Like no one said, the teachers didn't say anything. No one, I mean, I just remember it just brought that up to me. It's just like how weird and interesting, like, his drawings would be hanging in the hallway and people are walking by. It's like, that's that dude's blood. Like he'd literally just do little teeny cuts and just drip it.
Mm-hmm.
So strange, man.
There's a history too.
Put some of his dandruff in there.
There's a history in bookbinding where there's like they'd use human skin for different books and things like that. And a lot of the times it was like, I've got a book that I'm a big book person, bibliophile, and there's a book I have about rare books, and there's a whole chapter about books bound in human skin. And they were always, most often, the bodies were like convicts who were executed. I mean, which almost to me makes it worse, like, because I don't know, there's so many things messed up about it.
I mean, that's creepy, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's so creepy.
Yeah, super creepy. And there's one book where it's about like surgery and the anatomy of the, it was like a doctor commissioned it, and then he had it bound in human skin because
it's very disturbing. I'm just picturing like moles and like little hairs sticking out here and there. Ugh,
yeah.
God.
Well, you've seen the stuff where they do, like tattoos on. That reminds me. Remember? Okay. Several years. Well, God, it was before Trump got elected, and I co-curated that Trump show. The anti-Trump show. We were gonna stop Trump becoming president with art, and it almost worked. But anyway, the piece I did in that, the whole point was it was on goat skin, that I had to find goat skin, and then I soaked it and wrapped it around the panel, and because that was a weird piece for me. It was like with ink in that, but I wanted it to sort of look like a medieval thing, and they used to, of course, what did they call it? Vellum, it was like treated, kid, goat skin or lamb skin that they treat repeatedly. Like, I mean, if you go to the Book of Kells in Dublin at Trinity, or, any classic old, medieval illuminated manuscript, it's always, it's skin. It's just animal skin. And that was part of why I did it, because I wanted them to look like a little medieval demon. But I just thought about that. And what's interesting, when you get the skin, you'll see little pores. You'll see sometimes there might be a few hairs. I know I read a book a number of years ago about like the monks who would do the manuscripts, and sometimes they put in the sides like little jokes and things. And there's
Oh, wow.
one where an Irish monk jokes about, like, in Irish, where he's like, this this is a really, like, the velum is still hairy, and it's like a pain in the ass, where he's got to, he's hunched over working all day in this little cave, and
Yeah.
the light of a candle. And I don't know, that always blew my mind. I always reading about
it
those
is
guys.
funny.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna share some fan art with you, and
Cool.
I think ironically a lot of them were actually done on goat skin. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
hope so.
Yeah. All right. So, do you see this one?
Yeah.
All right. This first one's by Christoph Maciat. Maciat. I think this is looks like ballpoint pen or something like that.
That's cool.
Got
You know what's
your jaw.
yeah. I got that from my great grandfather. Yeah.
That jaw. This is cool.
The bottom one, he looks like there's a famous scientist.
Yeah.
He kind of looks simian, like
Yeah. Well, this is by Hozac and Reservoir, by the way.
Yeah.
Like the top one I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But almost look like you could be like the Joker or something.
Yeah.
But
or he looks like a scientist too. He looks like Carl Sagan kind of.
Oh yeah. The second one reminds me of a little bit of like William H. Macy or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. But
Yeah.
this one's pretty awesome. This is by Jared Hobson.
Wow, I like that one.
Yeah,
That
that's pretty
so
cool.
I debated giving you that picture because I was like, is this too weird? But I that's kind of why I gave it to you. I was that was I like that one. It reminds me, it's a little like Schiele-esque too, and Egon Schiele is always one of my favorites. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to, if I saw that on the cover of like a graphic novel or something, I'd immediately want to get it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really nice brushwork. I really like the brushwork a lot. It's nice.
Yeah, definitely. Really cool.
This is actually, I think, one of his coolest pieces I've seen.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I could be the muse.
It's pretty cool. this is by Jacques Lemonnier.
Oh, nice.
He's
See,
a
that's
Frenchman.
early. One thing, I recently cut my hair because my hair got long during COVID. It's the first time I ever did that because punks don't have long hair, you know.
That's funny. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. Nice cross hatching.
Cool. Yeah.
This is by Paula Petlawani. This is you know what this reminds me of. I think she did this in acrylic.
Okay.
It almost reminds me of Nick Cave or something.
Yeah, totally. Good call. Yeah.
It's cool. There's another cool one.
That's it. That reminds me of someone too.
That's awesome. This is by Mr. Ponce.
Nice. Little vampiresque. That one. Yeah.
I like there's a lot of nice like shape dynamic, like a lot of interesting angles, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is
that's
awesome.
fun. That's fun.
This is by Dominic Zeilinger.
Very cool.
Yeah, he always does like really awesome graphic type images, and it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
It's making me want some seafood. I don't know.
Like tentacles. Yeah. Calamari.
It's pretty cool. This is cool. This is by Pablo Salas.
Oh, that's wild.
I love how he got your jaws in there. Just like it's pretty cool, man. It's awesome. Yeah,
that's something I've come to realize as I've gotten older. Like, oh, I guess I've got a jaw. And then my dad and I were talking about it recently. Like my great grandfather had like just this lantern jaw, But yeah,
that's funny. And this is the last one. This is by Christine Varati. This is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I really like this a lot. Really nice paintwork.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I don't wear glasses. I've actually got really good vision, but it's a pandemic thing. I've when the mask mandate went down and I had, been going out, I was relieved to not have to wear a mask. I had gotten vaccinated, but I don't know. It was something about being cooped up for so long. I still wanted a disguise, so I had these fake glasses.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. I've kind of, but yeah, that's because I already had those. They're kind of like I've got, safety glasses for when I'm, doing, any sort of, work that's going to screw with my eyes, and those are kind of my extra safety glasses if I'm doing stuff out, in public somewhere where I don't look as doofy. Yeah, they kind of they're my disguise if I need it.
Like Clark Kent disguise.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty funny. Well, man, thanks so much for hanging out with me and talking. It's been fun.
Definitely.
It's a fun conversation. It went all over the place, and I love it.
Cool,
I don't know if people listening are going to love it, but I like it. Okay, this is
same.
Yeah, it's fun to catch up and talk with you, man.
Yeah, same, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. Before we go though, you want to let people know where they can find you and anything coming up or anything like that, and then we'll hit the road, Jack.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Instagram is Keelan McMorrow, KeelanMcMorrow, and I've got a website, keelanmcmorrow.com, and I've got a few group shows coming up locally in Chicago. One I can mention. I think the name of it is Atomic 13. That's the one I mentioned with the aluminum panels. That's going to be, oh God, when's the date? It's later in the year. And that's at Vertical Gallery. And then two others I can't mention yet because I don't have all the details yet, but I'm always doing stuff, so yeah, I'm always out there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, everyone, check out his stuff, and thanks again for your support. Thanks for sending in drawings, and be safe. We'll be seeing you. I've got a lot going on next week. I'm not sure if I'm going to do one next week, but the next guest is going to be Wes Hutchinson, who is an amazing musician, guitar player. He played with Norah Jones for many years, and he's a friend I met years ago, so it's gonna be cool to catch up with him. But he's an amazing musician and writer, producer, and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be really cool. So that's coming up. And until next time, we'll catch y'all later.
You want answers? The truth shall set you free. I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.